Yo, 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 what is going on, COD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and yes, today is a day of days. This is probably going to be the biggest, if not hopefully, most epically interesting interview that we have done of 2024. It is with the man of the hour, if you will, as it pertains to latest trends and momentum coming off of the refund and quitting video that we put out. Yes, we finally, or I should say I finally was able to get an interview with Crazybob. This is going to be an absolute banger. I'm pretty excited for it. We were basically texting, and I got lucky to an extent, as he claims. He was sipping on some whiskey, and it just ended up kind of loosening the tongue, if you will, and we were able to have a pretty nice conversation, I think, over about 2 hours. And so we're going to be showing you that. I'm also going to be letting you know at some point in this video, for those that are curious, how much money Bob has actually spent on the game altogether thus far. So that'll be somewhere, little Easter egg throughout. But with that in mind, here we go. Let's dive into this Crazybob interview. All right. So now I want to be clear here. Everything is pretty much copy and pasted. This is 99%, 99.99% copy pasted from our Discord conversations. That's why you see it formatted this way. There's only maybe a couple things here and there that are left out, and then just like one adjustment on the word where we just used fudge. Okay, how about I start with why the refund now and game exit compared to doing it earlier? Bob says, I've always wanted to quit since Season 2, but also the game was addicting and I never thought about a refund. Also, you get to know people and fudge with them, rock with them, so just to keep trying to play. A lot of people wanted to follow me also after the season cross migration opened, so it was now or never, such as him having to make a decision, because the more friends with me, the harder it would be to leave. I get that. Since we all assumed after this season that could happen. All right. Let's get to the next one. I can definitely understand the addicting and community parts of if you find good company, it can be enjoyable to hang out with nice people that have similar interests. You mentioned you haven't played a game in about 5 years. What games have you played before, and have you played any kingdom builders before, or was this the first time playing a game in this genre? He says, last game I played was probably Call of Duty and Clash of Clans. When I had just graduated from high school after 2 years of nothing, doing shit with my life, and my dad losing his job, we went from paycheck to paycheck to just broke. I laugh about it now, because I'm doing a lot better. But that's just how life is. When in that moment, in that shitty place to be in, once you climb out and look back, you just laugh and see how far things have come. But yeah, this is my first kingdom builder, if you want to say Clash of Clans isn't. Respectfully, I don't think Clash of Clans is. I think it's more kind of tower defense. City defense is probably a more appropriate way to put it, with some competitive and real-time aspects. But also, when I played Clash of Clans, my bank account was probably negative. Never heard the term whale till this game, which is pretty interesting, right? When you think about you're coming into a genre you've never played before, and people are throwing out the term whale or rogue, and it's probably new to you at that point. So then we get to, okay, wow, so you must be either 23, 24, or around that, and to go from paycheck to now being in a comfortable place must seem surreal to an extent, especially that early on in life. Do you mind me asking what you do and how you were able to turn it around, even if you want to be broad without going into specifics, if that is more comfortable? He says, graduated 18, went to college for a year, and 1 year not doing anything. I just turned 26, so a little bit older. He says he builds houses, mostly framing, so carpentry. I'm Latino, so construction is something I can surpass even others better than me just because I'm bilingual, and I did. That's why I'm here. Being able to speak both English and Spanish in the United States, where a huge part of the construction force is Latino, has benefited me in a way many wouldn't understand. Was it easy? Nah, but when you hit rock bottom, you really got no choice. That's the truth, man. As my boy Buster Moon from Sing would say, when you hit the bottom, the only place you can go is up, if you will. I know I didn't do that in a singing voice. So that's why me spending the amount I did on this game actually makes me just reminisce on life. It's crazy. I spent what people would consider maybe top 10% of our population in a game in less than a year. Talking about U.S. population, don't get me started on my third world country people. Probably would kill me if they found out about my stupidness. Hey, man. The money that as I've said this before, right? The amount of money that people spend is all relative and subjective to their income, right? If you're making, $1 million a year, and let's say you save and you don't really spend money on anything, you spending 10% of your wealth on something that you enjoy. I mean, yeah, you can still argue that's a decent chunk, But if you don't spend anything on anything else and all you do is save, right? You can even if you say like, look, I got $10 million in my savings. I never spend it. What's 100K, right? So I like to view it as more kind of relative to that individual's situation. And then but that's how you get addicted to a cool game, right? Kind of acknowledging, right? COD is a cool game. I hope to never find a game as enjoyable as this one. Was the start. But he's like, hey, me and you were a part of, I don't think he was calling me a motherfucker. I think that was me. At least that's my hope. Me and you were part of that history because of your project. This shit was fun. Ha ha ha. I still have screenshots of when you made me the first rogue player for the bossnasti project. I mean, yeah, for anyone who doesn't know the history there, Bob first showed up. He was in one of our alliances when we did when I did my project, our project, I should say, in Kingdom 65. And we came in, I think we had 8 alliances, 8 or 9 alliances that we came in with. Bob ended up landing in one of them, and after some time had passed, kind of ended up wanting to fight more. And I mean, there might have been some misunderstandings, or again, I don't know if I want to even say disagreements, but essentially it led to him leaving one of the alliances and wanting just to fight more at the end of the day, which he did kind of throughout the remainder of that first season. And so yeah, it was again, man, ups and downs in that. It was a fun, wild ride, and the fact that this can kind of come full circle, because I think anyone who is probably, who would have been in my situation, right, would have been, man, it sucks to have rogues in a project, especially when you put a lot of work in, you put all that time in, you have hundreds of people that want to join and be a part of it, and then they come in and they have this expectation of wanting to be able to live up to kind of what we're selling and what we are hoping to build to, right? And then you get a situation where you have a rogue player or a rogue alliance or multiple rogue players that kind of throw wrenches in, that kind of throw these wrenches, whether they're temporary or permanent, kind of in the cogs of the machine. And, you would think, well, man, if that ended up ruining things, or if it was a factor into that, you probably wouldn't feel a good way about it. For me, I've ran so many projects at this point. And even though, I think at the end of the day, anyone who runs projects never wants to have to do them more than once. I think if I could just run one project and it works out fantastic, we could last a number of years, that's great, right? I think that's the hope for most people. And so the fact that this can come full circle and I can be on par with Bob. And the thing I want to say real quick before we move on to the next question about Bob is, the thing that I've always respected, and the reason why Bob has always had my respect, is because Bob was always upfront. He was always honest. He was no sugarcoat, no bullshit. I remember he came into one of our voice calls in Discord when everything was going down, and he talked with us on voice and conversated, and obviously he preferred text for the interview, and that's totally fine. But he was always very truthful, right, and honest with himself. When that, he wanted to fight. He just saw things differently based on where he was at the time, even though, given how early it was in season 1 and his first Kingdom Builder, he didn't know, I'm sure, as much as he probably knows now. But at the end of the day, he never lied about anything, right? He never said, oh yeah, no, I'll be friendly, but then just kept, breaking rules or, kept attacking people. He just like, this is how I want to play. This is what I want to be. And I always respected that. Even if I didn't agree with it for the overall way to play, just because anyone who fights in a home kingdom or a season 1 kingdom can get so much more enjoyment out of a KVK overall, because there's just so much more fighting that's available to you there. But again, it is what it is. Okay, then we get no hard feelings on that shit. I was new to this, and you were just playing the game. It is what it is. Yeah. Still, this is an amazing feat, I have to say, from where you started to where you are now, especially to have the budget that you do to spend on games. If you'd like, you mentioned since season 2 the game started falling off for you. What was it about season 2 that started you down this path of how you feel? He says, let me ask you this. What do you see when you are spectating? How long are we looking at the screen without any action, and how long does the action last? Game is in a weird meta, long everything. If it wasn't for the social aspect, this game is complete shit. Wait forever on all things, and they remove barricades and add turrets, thus completely eliminating calves from the game. They aren't even good for farm killing anymore. Farm killing equals just passing the time while nothing happens. Gives both the defender and offensive, I guess we'll say, something to do even if people get pissed off. And, I think this is pretty spot on. Not on the game is complete shit part, let me be clear. But at least when he talks about the meta state when it comes to kind of KVK PvP. And the fact is, and anyone who watches my channel, we pull data on this. I have accounts in every kingdom, and I'm in every KVK. I routinely go through every KVK pretty much every 2 to 3 days, and on average. And I'll go through them to see, when are passes openings, when are the gates or pass/gates opening, right? Who's fighting who? What are the matchups that we're leaning into? How are the future zones panning out? How did the current zone pan out, right? On kind of who won, who lost. I love looking at that. And for those of you, I've also done videos where, if you remember the last season for S2 Plus, when we were looking at those 9 KVK groups. We did a daily review. We went into each of those. Once the moment that final zone opened, we did a daily recap, so we could show you in real time, or more or less, how much fighting was happening, who was stalling out, who was winning, who was losing. We did it around the same time every day. And what you ended up seeing is that once you get to a zone where a lot of action can happen, and maybe even a decent amount of action can happen considerably, you get to a point where what we saw was that the majority of the groups, at least 6 of the groups, had about 48 hours, up to 48 hours, 36 to 48 hours of just like good, sustainable PvP. And then after that, it just pretty much died off, right? To a point where you had one side that maybe wasn't able to push, and because the other side was already at their flag, and so it was just a matter of now they had to wait for their flag to catch up to the other flag. There were situations where maybe they fought until the flags touched, and then after, maybe a couple flags worth, it was just over at that point. And even though, there might have still been some resistance here and there, it was going in one direction, right? The momentum was just constantly moving. So, and then you have a few other KVKs, right, which, for those of you that remember, there was the TFS Noir, right? That was epic. That obviously lasted, 2 weeks, give or take. And then you had the EIS, there was the EIS Tri VVV group. There was one other two as well that I'm forgetting. I mean, even NK and BXS and OWL. I mean, it was a little bit, obviously not as much as some of the other ones. But like I said, there was a few that did last a little bit longer. But obviously with TFS Noir lasting the longest, it's just that wasn't the trend. And there's reasons for why the PvP isn't as sustainable long term as it is now. Along with the fact that, there can be some different things when it comes to matchups as well for how they do that. And I'm hoping that, we'll end up seeing a little bit more of that once cross-season migration comes out, once we get home kingdoms, where instead of them kind of pairing top kingdoms, mid kingdoms, and low-powered kingdoms, we'll eventually get a variation, even if they test it, where we'll see, the top 6 strongest kingdoms, and then maybe we'll do 7 through 12, right? Then maybe we'll do 13 through 20. Right, and they'll just add enough kingdoms to make sure they meet a certain activity threshold. But the fact is that you can make an argument for one side of it, that if you match up players and alliances that are of similar power, right, there is a engagement factor there of them knowing that, hey, because we're closer in power, I now can have a higher chance of being able to fight against these people compared to when the power is incredibly widened on the gap when it comes to amount of T5s, alliance power, player power. Just that visual pressure that can happen is a very real thing. So then we get to, aside from the slow pace of the fighting, even if this game applies to Beyond Season 2, what else about the game do you find could be improved or impacts the game in a negative way? He says, literally slow pace, my guy, because it affects everything. It will bring to light all the problems. Choke points, what are they? A waste of time. 2 teams looking at each other for hours, gathering to do an hour push. Thus, a 9 hours waste of a day happens. Sleepless nights happen. And what is a root to that? Motherfucker's scared to fight because healing is shit now. I'm like 250, 15 million power. I think that's when he's fully healed or historical, and not at 2 million healing. When in Season 1 Plus, I was at 1.4 million healing per day at 130, 140 million. Right now, I'm at like 1.7. People are scared to fight because it means days of healing now. They slowed the Fudge out of this game so much it feels like a chore to stare at the screen knowing nothing is going to happen, but it could. I think this is, again, when you kind of sift through, right, the response, I think there are some valid points here when you talk about, on map, sometimes it feels like there's just not enough open field, right? And we've talked about this, where it's sometimes it's not necessarily maybe the amount of choke points overall. More often than not, I mean, you can make an argument there that, maybe they could reduce a little bit, but I would almost like to see them just open the map up a little bit more, right? Where you have this kind of equal, or like in every zone, you have like a big open field area, and then you can have your choke points and your mountain ranges, right, or hills that you're kind of going in between, that would be okay as well. And then I'd almost like to see them do maps where maybe it's more open field focused, right? And there's, you know, a fewer choke points, but the map is more generally open field. Maybe there's more elevation changes. I mean, you can almost have a theme, right, each season. There are different things that they can test out, right? Then we get to the other part where it's, you know, some people might feel like scared because it's too long. And I think that's kind of where you get more into the, you know, why we see a lot of alliances and players now trying to almost set themselves up for Final Zone, right? So that way they can blow everything once they end up getting there and not feel like they're having to heal for days, right? If they were to fight in Zone 3, right? The zone before Final Zone, or like we were seeing in the S2 Plus season where nobody was really fighting in the Runic Statue area before Final Zone opened because they wanted to make sure they had max healed or no hospital heals. And max troops available. The healing is definitely a crucial area of the game, especially the free healing, in which it can either elevate the game or fall victim to the sluggish play that we often see when it is too low. Where would you like to see the healing at in order to elevate the game beyond where it is, along with any potential changes? He says, I can't say would like because I don't care about the game anymore. I don't care what happens to it. He's honest. I tried to voice my opinion on Discord once. I'm banned now, but you know the devs don't give a fudge, so I'm happy not to give them any more money. They just need to listen to the players. They all say the same things. I don't understand the devs thinking. Yeah, sometimes you need to be the lion to be the sheep. This is so deep that I don't even understand what that means. And I was racking my head around this when he first said it. And maybe one of you guys know what that means. Let me know in the comments. But this is such a dope thing. I almost want to print it on a shirt and just have it saying. So yeah, I don't know, man. It rocks you to your core, I felt like. Really are, but you also don't get to be greedy. Consistency is how you build loyalty. And if they want loyal players, meaning loyal income coming in, they might want to show them that they listen to them a little bit more. Players think they don't listen at all. Maybe if they do, what it takes, a dev send a message at least once a week to the community in comparison to what their players are paying in their livelihood. It's called disrespect in my world. So I say fudge the devs. They similar to the same because I have to deal with in real life. They choose the fast path. So, you know, again, filtering and kind of taking things away. I think if we're looking at things objectively, there have been some things that the devs have listened to and they've incorporated. There's been some things that they haven't. And then there's the stuff in the middle, which is basically the updates and things that they come out with, right, which is new features or changes here and there. So, I mean, I like to feel it's been a mix. I think the challenge for me, really the biggest one, is that there always just feels like this disconnect between how much do the devs really ingratiate themselves, how much do they really immerse themselves in the game that they've built, because you have to kind of think about it like this, right? How many of them are leaders, leading successful lines? How many of them have done officers? How many of them have been contributing members? How many of them have done KVK diplomacy? How many of them have done recruiting, player auditing, internal affairs? How many of them have been ward leads? Like really understanding everything that goes into the game. It's a lot more complex than I think people think. And for me, that's always something I would love to almost kind of bridge that gap. So if I ever have an opportunity to interview developers, I'd love to, because for me, it wouldn't be about, you know, everything they don't know. It would be more about like, let's come together. I want to see where you're at. I want to meet you midway, and I want to have a great contributing constructive discussion, something that's progressing us forward. On a more positive side, what are some things you like about the game, either that got you into it or Mia, go get your shoes. You got 1 minute. Things you like about the game, or that got you into it, or kept you here. Outside the slow pace, which I like, said points out on the other problems. I liked almost everything else. I like the way they bring out 2 heroes every season. The fighting mechanics were really good. I guess war pets don't feel powerful, and they want us to spend money on it, but do people really want them to be powerful? So I don't know. They find the way they are eventually as army sizes increase. They also get better as most pets are percentage based. I only quit because of slow pace, man. I go out a lot and have multiple people I'm seeing. So my time waking up hungover and then having to play this game with my brain hurting and then realizing the whole day is gone because you spent the past 9 hours playing the game makes you feel like shit. Well, at least for me, it feels like a waste of time for something that isn't benefiting my life. It's just to pass the time, but too much time passes with this game because of the slow pace. And then I said, okay, what keeps that keeps it simple when it comes to the biggest or main pain points. Are there any memorable moments throughout your time playing that you feel really embody the potential of what this game could be, crazy or funny? He says, man, my biggest moment I remember is holding the gate 4 in Season 1 Plus for 9 hours. Just me versus the whole server. I lost 800 KT5 infantry to deaths, not even severely wounded. It was amazing for me to just hold it versus United server, so I don't get how many people say I'm scared to fight T5. I'm the best there is, my boy. I just don't like the game anymore. Everybody glorifies people like Mephisto, but I would have no problem dropping another 250k on this game. I just don't like it anymore. What can I say? Fudge everybody. Shots fired. But it's pretty wild to hear that he can do that. Mia, go ahead and head out. I'll be right there. He says, I just don't like it anymore. Yeah, put Max in his cage if you can too, sweetie. Go ahead and head out. Your bus is coming. You got 1 minute. So yeah, very interesting to hear that, right? He could spend a lot more on the game. Almost makes you kind of feel like a missed opportunity. And at the same time, I wonder how many other people might feel like that to some extent, right? That share similar sentiments that Bob has. Because again, I think there is some truth and some realness to what Bob is saying, at least when it comes to the constructive feedback that you can look towards the game. He says, I say this is awesome to hear. I'm sure the fact that it was nonstop or near that during the window made it that much more enjoyable, though this game differs from Clash of Clans and other strategy games. Do you like the Kingdom Builder genre to where if another game came out that met your hopeful expectations, would you consider diving back in? He says, I don't know. I'm not a gamer. I just joined this game from a random ad I saw when I was bored. I wish it had the 100K price tag on it. Oh boy, he shouldn't have said that because Shinshi's going to come down and make another video from 10K to 100K that you got to pay. I'm just joking. I love you, Shinshi. And I would never have downloaded it, but these games are fattest waste of time for me. But who knows? Maybe can't say no ever or say no. But I truly believe if I don't learn from this game as a mistake, I have forgotten where I come from. There are bigger things going on in the world than a mobile game. I pray I never play a game like this again. I wish you could look on YouTube. I appreciate the love there, Bob. But my life doesn't benefit from games. I have goals to meet and hopefully bigger goals to achieve. Everybody in this game has fun just to make sure you have your priorities straight, because maybe their potential is being wasted on spending time in this game like I feel mine was. And I guess that's my take, bro. If you got anything else, just ask. And then lastly, I say any shout-outs or call-outs. He says, haha, my guys, you already know my friends I meet here. Shout out to my bros. Faithon, this motherfucker says, Fudge, fuck him. Hib, Zarani, Loco, Aziz, Sammy, Unholy, Mubin, Targaryen, Damar, Billionaire, Ali, Shanks, Frosty. Kooks a lot. Sammy, you get 2 shoutouts because you're awesome like a possum. All HRT Alliance, Showy Chestnut, Uaski, all these motherfuckers made the game fun. Well, bossnasti, up to you for whatever I said. I'm leaving all Discords as I type this, just saying goodbye to all I really do. Quit this game with no remorse. Oh, also, some last minute shoutouts. Red Rover, Mordina, Bayhart. Those 3 probably know me more than anybody. Awesome. Yeah, Red Rover's a good guy, man. Definitely someone I enjoyed talking to. Mubin, I remember some of those guys. Targaryen, Aziz, Ronnie, I remember having some conversations with them. Mordina, the boss lady, she's awesome. Yeah, and then the last thing I'll tell you right now, for those of you that have still stayed here to the end of the video, Bob has spent a little over $106,000 on the game thus far. That's a lot. With that in mind, that is pretty much it for me. Like I said, I love doing these interviews, regardless if, people are mad at the game or absolutely love the game. I always see, if you sift through the sand, you can always find some truth. You can find some good takeaways in it. And that's hopefully how I was able, at least I hope I was able to present it in that way where it's more educational and constructive. I'd love to hear what you guys think. Let me know in the comments down below. That's going to do it for me. As always, until next time, I will catch you later. And of course, let me know who you'd like for me to interview next.